I only spoke to you briefly in 2010 or 2011. This was at the School of Infantry, my first command. I was still very impressionable, especially concerning Greenside Corpsman. That's Corpsman who served with the Marines. I think I had just finished field medical training. I was back at SOI, and there you are. I think you were visiting one of the higher ups, one of the, well, like a HM2 or an HM1.
I think it was a couple of the guys were getting promoted to HM3. And so I was up there visiting as well while I was in town.
What's unique about your situation is you deployed to Iraq. You were in a vehicle and you were hit with an IED. We'll go into your injuries, but among it was you lost your right leg?
Left leg initially and then right
Left
leg.
leg.
Yeah.
Left leg initially.
Yeah.
On that deployment, sent with 3rd Battalion, 7th Marine Regiment to Ramadi in Iraq, September 2005. You were in a gun truck when you were struck by an IED. Before that, you had over 225 combat patrols. You had 2 full years of physical, mental, and spiritual recovery. When I met you, I think you were still in the throes of getting surgeries then, right?
Yeah, I was at Warrior Battalion and I was like staff/patient there. So, yeah.
You had partial amputations from the fingers? Right.
Yeah.
And then 16 years later, you lost your right leg. I guess they tried to keep it and just wasn't happening for you.
Yeah, I had over 30 surgeries on it.
Wow.
And then I was finally down to ankle fusion or amputations. I just decided to just chop and go. So
To describe that patrol, this was in 2005. What was the quote unquote gunship? What vehicle was that?
like I started out the patrol. So our mission as an India company, 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines, we were training the Iraqi army at the time. So our missions were, we basically had a 9-day work week. So we had 3 days combat patrols doing counterinsurgency. And then we had 3 days of, or like platoon ops, and then 3 days of training Iraqi army and then 3 days of QRF out in the city. So we were on our morning patrol with our first squad taking the Iraqi army out. So I was out there on patrol. I was driving the medevac Humvee, and that's where it started. And then the vehicle that I was hit in wasn't the one that I started in.
No.
But I mean, it's one of those like chaos of war. One of the high backs got hit. So basically high backs like a troop transport, but just for like fire team squad size. For those that don't know. And so I was driving the high back designated for medical. So when that other high back got hit, that was in our convoy. The 2 people driving it, the driver, A driver, they were knocked unconscious for about a minute, but no other significant injuries. They needed to maintain squad integrity. So I gave up my vehicle that I was driving. And then I just hopped in what was going to be the second to the last gun truck. But then while we were waiting for the Army record to come out that day for the Humvee that got hit, because it completely immobilized it, it blew the engine block. Like this IED was so powerful, blew the engine block on top of the 2nd story, like rooftop. Like, so 2 stories up on top of that rooftop. So yeah, that was pretty crazy. That vehicle was disabled, but while we kind of circled around and set up overwatch and everything, we got in a firefight. Black sedan pulled up at the T in the road, and masked insurgents popped up and started shooting at us. What was the rear gun truck then? I think it was the mounting pin for the 240 malfunction. So then that rendered that vehicle useless as a rear gun truck. So then the vehicle that I hopped in, which was second to rear, became the rear gun truck. And then when the Army record came out and, said, hey, we got this, we headed back to base. And then that's when I got hit.
And just for those watching who might not know, 240 is an automatic rifle.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't mounted correctly, obviously that can't be your rear vehicle. You need some other gun. When you were hit, was it one of those where you woke up, or were you awake after you were hit?
I was awake and alert through it all. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Which, I mean, just was crazy, Yeah.
Were you instructing people? Were you out of it? Or was it?
My immediate thought was, holy shit, we were getting hit by an IED. And then my second thought was, holy shit, I'm alive thinking this right now. And so, but everything went black from the sit and everything. And I didn't know it at the time, but the Oakleys that I was wearing, the shrapnel went into the Oakleys and blurred them. And so when we landed,
But they didn't penetrate the Oakleys, right? Wow. Thank God you had those on, huh?
And I mean, I have shrapnel that went into my nose, like through the sinuses. I have shrapnel like out here on the side of my nose, you know, and, but yeah, you know, thank God for Abram.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that Oakleys, when I first got in, I'm like, everyone's buying Oakleys. What's going on? And
Yeah.
I know Oakleys, they really make them well. And I know one person told me just even from an explosion, you might wear regular sunglasses, they might melt into your eyes.
Yeah.
You know, Oakleys are just made to endure.
Oh,
It sounds like an ad for Oakleys, but yeah, I definitely recommend proper investment in both Ear Pro and Eye Pro if you when you're in.
oh yeah, absolutely. And but yeah, and then we landed on the side, and my immediate thought was like, I got to get to work. And so I felt my legs for any significant like life-threatening bleeding, because that's what we're trained to do, right? Because
Yeah,
if Doc's dead, like what are we gonna do for Marines? And so yeah, so I felt for
Was there another corpsman around who was aiding you, or?
there was, but he didn't aid me. And so what I did was I felt for any life-threatening bleeding, felt my legs were bleeding, and so put tourniquets on right away, and then I radioed in my position. And then
Right, because both your legs were significantly
yeah,
wounded. Obviously, since 16 years later, you did lose the other leg. So, yeah, that's right. I keep focusing on the one, but yeah,
Yeah.
you had the double leg injuries.
yeah.
This was 2005 before the surge. Were you guys kind of widely dispersed? There just wasn't enough people. How was that?
Well, at the time, I mean, we were taking casualties pretty hardcore. I think our company alone, we had 5 KIA, and
Oh man.
you know,
Wow.
and so I think we took probably around 20 KIA, and then overall our battalion, and then on top of that, all the wounded, walking wounded, you know, because
Yeah.
at that time, I mean, that wasn't the first IED I've been hit by. I mean, shit, that was the second IED we just.
Oh, really?
Just our patrol got hit by that day alone.
Right.
And, you know, so it's like,
So many facets. You're in a firefight, the IED, taking on all those casualties, the rigor of it. When I was reading your bio, were you an IA? Were you kind of thrown to this unit? You didn't do the pre-deployment training?
yeah,
I had that, but obviously it wasn't a combat deployment where it was kind of like, all right, we got to leave in 3 days. You're gonna be part of a battalion landing team. You're gonna have to learn how to fast rope quick and all this kind of stuff. They kind of just throw corpsmen into the mix. Sounds like that's what they did with you.
yeah, I was an IA, literally got orders, and they were just like, hey, we don't know what to do with you. The guys are on pre-deployment right now. So, and at the time, what had happened with me and some of the other guys was some of the guys that I went through field med and graduated with, or, you know, whatnot, or were IAs as well, that went to 3-1, and then they went to Haditha. We were all just like, you know, dropped in while everyone was on pre-deployment leave. So they were like, hey, well, you can take extra leave or you can go do combat trauma. So a lot of us, and back then it was only volunteer. So we volunteered to go to CTM.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that before deployment, but that there wasn't a choice involved. Well, good on you. I mean, 2005, it was still in the early days. I remember speaking to, the older guys, how up until 9/11, they were still teaching Vietnam tactics for medical care.
Yeah.
So we were kind of thrown into modernizing. And I would imagine 2005, you're still figuring it out a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we still had the granulated quick clot, which we were just barely getting then. We didn't have any of the blood volume expanders. We weren't taught how to do the blood transfusions in the field. We had none of that, dude. It was just basically like golden hour, get them up and out.
Yeah, I remember some people telling me like, have saran wrap on you for some of your chest wounds, or cut the MREs, and you just
Yeah.
don't have enough. You never
Yeah.
have enough.
Yeah. The MREs with the old duct tape and the saran wrap for
Yeah,
burns. And,
yeah.
it's like, yeah.
That's the one thing with School of Infantry. Like, even if you're not deployed to a combat zone,
Yeah.
everyone who's instructing was. So the tempo is, this is how it is. This is how you have to learn. This is what you got to show your Marine. There's corpsman care. There's corpsman aid, buddy aid, and self aid. They need to know the three tiers, and you're just getting all this intense and profound knowledge from the combat vets across the board.
Oh, yeah. And I don't want to say their names on here, but, some of the other seniors, because I ran MCT for a while, and some of the other
Which is,
trainers.
for those watching, is military combat training
Yeah.
for Marines who are not going to go into infantry.
Yeah.
They graduate boot camp, they go to MCT, they learn, every
They do
Marine a
their-
rifleman, and they perfect their skills, and then they might go off to be, drivers or
Toms
mechanics
or-
and
yeah.
whatnot. Yeah.
Yes.
So you ran that, you said you were in that?
Yeah, so I ran that for a little while, and then the others that ran like ITB, Infantry Training Battalion, AIT, Advanced Infantry
For
Training.
those who are going to become actual infantrymen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the new guys coming through, new guys, corpsmen, I remember some of my guys, I would get calls from gunnies over, and they're like, hey, I got some Marines that are going to go IA. They just need extra, hiking out in the field or rucking, whatever.
Okay, that's cool.
And so we need corpsman coverage. And I'm like, okay, well, hey, these corpsmen are going IA as well. So,
Yeah.
so I would just take my time on the weekends and just set it up, and I would go oversee and just make sure that my little boot nuggets were getting their training too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was a part of ITB in field section and AIT, Advanced Infantry Training, those who are coming back from the fleet for more advanced training, which is a good gig because I know MCT, they needed to get those Marines to their schools as fast as possible. So you might be like 15 days in the field, weekends,
Oh,
whereas
yeah.
ITB is called something else now, I can't remember, but you had your weekends off. So it was kind of a good gig to be at Camp Pendleton, 40 minutes outside of San Diego, and know that your Saturday and Sunday are yours. That was a good gig.